And we are live. Welcome to the Clean Power Hour Live. Today is January 4th, 2024. And we are going to be breaking down some of the best news from 2023 and some prognostications for 2024. And check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Give us a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify. And tell a friend about the show. I want our listeners to know that I'm headed to California for 10 days. I'll be in San Diego January 9 to 19, going to RE Plus Community Power and Inner Solar. So please, if you're going to be in California, reach out to me. Would love to connect with you and have a coffee or a beer. With that being said, welcome to the show. My co-host, John Weaver, Commercial Solar Guy. Welcome.
Tim, nice to talk to you. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Enjoyed some time. I did.
What did you do for the holidays?
Among other things, I rented a Tesla from Hertz, which was cool. Got to drive around in that, and I have no supercharger anxiety. They're always there, always full. Up and down the East Coast, it's like everywhere. In Florida, it's great. It's a good time. And so that's the most relevant to this Clean Power Hour podcast of ours is that I drove a great Tesla in South Florida, and it was nice and easy and cool.
So normally you're driving a Kia, right?
Was it? No, it's a Hyundai Ioniq 5.
Yeah, and is supercharging a problem when you're traveling long distance with the Ioniq?
It's a little more challenging. There is no supercharger network. There's fast DC charging, and if you combo all of the ones that are out there, you can get it done. But if you just want to go, say, on Electrify America, which is supposed to be free for me for the first 2 years, then it's kind of a headache because there's not as many. Sometimes they're full, but you figure it out and you get it done. But there's no anxiety with the Tesla, and there's a lot more. With the Ioniq, you have to plan. You have to think about it. With the Tesla, it's like, just go.
Right.
The car does it. The car does it very fluidly. The Ioniq, you as a human being have to do a little bit of work. And my goodness, I just want to lay back and cruise.
Yeah. And Tesla's opening up their network, though. Is that happening on the East Coast yet, where they're allowing other vehicles to charge at the network?
So I've charged at a Tesla in downstate nearing this New York City via what's it called, a magic plug or something with my Ioniq, and it worked fine. It was a little slow, and there was a software thing I found online limits it to like 42 kW. So it's not a fast charge. But I think I saw in the headlines that January 1st it was supposed to open wider and be more broadly. We'll see. But yeah, it's supposed to be happening.
Yeah. I mean, these little things, they matter. And that is one thing that Tesla got right. They built a lot of chargers, and they made the car find the chargers very easily. And it tells you, hey, okay, you're going to charge here, and boom. And it just works. Otherwise, I can't say I miss my Tesla, but I don't drive an EV anymore. And so I don't have range anxiety because there's gas stations everywhere. Someday I dream about owning a Kia. I think the Kia EV design is brilliant, but
I think they look cool. I almost got the Kia EV6. I walked into the Kia first. It just looked neater in the images, but the salesperson tried to toss like a $15,000, $10,000 plus markup on me. And I was like, all right, see ya. He's like, it's 70 G's. I'm like, no, just no, I'm not spending that on, I just walked away from that with Tesla.
Right.
So
we could talk all day about EVs, but we should probably talk about some other stuff. I had the pleasure of listening to Barry Cinnamon's recent show where he makes some prognostications for 2024. Barry Cinnamon is a solar installer in the Bay Area, real OG. I mean, he got into solar in the 90s, and he has a show called The Energy Show. So check that out. I think it's Energy Show. TheEnergyShow.biz is the show's website, or Cinnamon Energy. Cinnamon Energy Solutions is the name of his company. And Barry's really into electrification of everything, John. And that's kind of one of the themes I think that we're going to see in the solar industry, a growing drumbeat of emphasis on electrification of everything. Because, for example, We saw the collapse of the residential solar market in California in 2023, thanks to NEM 3.0, right? They dinged net metering by 75%, which makes solar worth less. And so the payback period's longer, right? And so consumers go, meh, I don't, a 12-year payback, I can't get excited about that. I don't know if I'm going to be in my house in 12 years. But what that does is it increases the importance of batteries, and it increases the importance of other things that installers can install, like heat pump water heaters or heat pump furnaces, for HVAC, or EV charging infrastructure. So that is a theme I think that we are just going to see a lot of news and emphasis on. And then also installers moving from Resi into other segments of the industry, from Resi into CNI, for example, commercial industrial solar, which I think is a great opportunity for Resi installers. Reach out to me if you're a Resi installer and you want to become a commercial installer. That's one of my niches. I help installers develop the tools and technologies that they need to have in-house in order to really attack commercial solar. But what's on your short list of prognostications for 2024, John?
Big things for 24 is energy storage is going to keep growing. We're going to see low pricing of modules reverberate through the market a little more. Energy storage prices are down again. We might start to see some record low priced PPAs again. The United States apparently is going to see a huge amount of solar installed and turned on this year. A lot of it slipped from last year and into this next year, but next year we're going to see, projects that are started breaking ground this year turn on, and next year, and so the pressure will actually, because we're going to start compressing the years. We're going to see real pressure on labor probably real soon. Maybe we'll see equipment stuff start to bother us again because the growth will be a little more aggressive. The big number this year is going to be like 37 gigs of solar, 33, huge number. But some of that slipped from last year. So the labor was done last year. But next year, we're going to have a number that's, I think, bigger than this number in the United States. And that's going to happen within the proper year. And so we're going to have this year might be a big year for people trying to turn on projects which could drive everybody down the supply chain. So might be the first time we start seeing demand driven something for hardware, for labor happen in the United States. Demand driven challenges on the industry, which could be interesting.
I'm not sure I follow.
Oh, so if we have, so to get the 37 gigs that are getting deployed this year, or last year, sorry, 37 gigs was deployed.
30, isn't it more like 30?
Last time I saw it was 33. And then I saw something else that said 35. And I don't know where the heck I'm getting 37 from.
Yeah, I think 37 might be the forecast for 2024, but.
Well, let's just say it is. Let's say this year was 30 to 33 and next year is 37, or say 24 is 37. See, Tim, I still don't know what year I'm in. But let's say we did 30 to 33 in 23 and 37 in 24. Well, the 30 to 33 that was deployed in 1923 or 2023, geez, part of it was built in 22. We had a downturn, and so the resources, both human and machine and hardware, their purchase was spread over a 2-year window. Some percentage of our 30 to 33 was done last year, which means we only had to deploy the people power of, say, 25 gigs of solar, maybe 20 gigs of solar, because so much of it came from last year, maybe like 7 gigs worth. Maybe we didn't do 30. Maybe we didn't do 33. Maybe we did 24 this year. And 24 is our closer to max number, or 27, somewhere in that range. Next year, though, which is this year, we're projected to do like 37 to 40.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just put a Canary Media story. Canary Media, well-known clean economy outlet, covered this. We apparently did exceed 30 in 2023. They're saying around 33, I guess.
Yeah.
And then looks like 37 to me for 2024.
All right.
And the orange is resi, the purple or whatever that is non-residential, meaning commercial, and then the yellow is utility.
Now, you see this big jump from 22 to 23?
Right.
That should have been a smoother thing. And that means this big thing in 23, some piece of it should be chopped off.
That was because of the IRA, basically, right?
Absolutely. IRA, hardware pricing being still up. Remember, in 22, we were in a time of modules costing 55 cents. And now that same product, you can buy it for 20 cents. So, a lot of things happened in 22 that slowed that down. And so next year, we're going to jump. And you know what? WoodMac's always the conservative one. So if WoodMac thinks 40 or 37, I'm saying 42.
Okay.
And then that's
fair
boom.
Enough.
That's
fair
a big
enough.
number. Big boom. Big bada boom.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're headed. Are we headed to 100 gigawatt territory in the next 5 years, something like that?
Well, I don't have U.S. numbers, but I totally have a story on the docket where I want to pontificate on maybe what's happening next year and beyond, and what some people think.
Oh, well, what's that story? We may as well segue to that. I want to let's keep this thread.
That sounds wonderful. So the next story is: could we see 4 terawatts of solar deployed almost in 2030?
Okay.
Mathematically, it is possible, and it follows along some very clear logic that we can show. And I tried to lay it out in my little storybook here, and many challenges, of course, but if we look at how the world has grown over the last 20 years, 40 years actually, and I show a nice, beautiful graph where I try to describe it. So this is the volume deployed. This is starting in 2010, and this is going to 2023. We can see something happening here at the end. Of course, the bottom is being driven by China so significantly, but we see it definitely growing. Now, if we go down to the next image, we can see what this looks like on a logarithmic scale. Over this time period, we've had a consistent growth rate. There are definitely some periods where it fell below and it had to catch up, including recently, but it was close, and then it really caught up, and it's now kind of passing. If something like this were to continue, go to the next image. Wait, no, we can skip that one for now. The next image. Yeah. If something like this starts to continue, this is an analysis done by Uwe Dahlmer, and he sees 3.8-ish gigs to be deployed in 2030. And this is just a continuation of a doubling of capacity deployed, roughly 2+ years. That's big volume. That's almost 4 gigs. See that gray one? That gray bar is almost 4 gigs. And the first terawatt is around
4 terawatts.
Oh, yeah.
This is all in terawatts.
Terawatts, sir. Yeah, skip those gigs. Measly little gigawatts. Do that every day, man. Casual.
So we hit a terawatt of new solar installed in 2023. Is that the deal?
No. Early 22. The first terawatt was in early 22.
Of global installed base.
Yes.
Yeah.
And our next one will be in like 26, maybe this year, actually. I mean, if we did the first one in 22, and then we installed another 250, we knock off. So let's say we did 200. So we're at 1.2 at the end of 22. And then this year we did, say, 350. So now we're at 1.55. Next year, we need 450. And I've seen estimates of 550 to 600. So this year, we hit our second terawatt, probably. So scroll down a tiny bit. This is deployed capacity in that calendar year based on his team's analysis, et cetera, et cetera.
Cool. Yeah. So globally, we will start deploying potentially a terawatt per year in 2026, and then to 2 terawatts in 2028, and almost to 4 by 2030. Yeah, the grid, both here in the United States and globally, is going to be 50% solar by 2050, give or take a few years. And it's the fastest growing source of clean power on the grid. I mean, it's amazing, John.
It's fast source of power on the grid, not clean power, power.
Yeah, right. It's
Happens to
amazing how much bigger solar is than wind now. I think we installed 7 gigawatts of wind in the United States in 2023, while we were installing 30 gigawatts of solar. Now there's a bigger install base of wind, right? So solar's playing catch up. Solar's having its heyday, and but we're going to eclipse wind. Well, we've eclipsed it on an annual basis. I think the total wind is going to be a little less than solar, like 40%. But anyway, together, wind and solar will be 90% of the grid. And some people want to install nuclear reactors, John, but I'm not one of them. Too slow, too expensive.
Yeah, well, I think we should still be installing them. It's a big power grid market. And
on Mars, on Mars, it's a great place for a nuclear power plant.
Sure, but we need to start them here. We got them on military bases. We got them everywhere. We need to be building some. We need to build something of everything. There's more than enough energy money, energy investment, strategic requirements. There's enough. There's enough floating around.
Even Dan Sugar thinks nuclear is a no bueno. Have you been following Dan Sugar's Uncle Bob conversations with Uncle Bob?
I haven't.
Oh, check it out on LinkedIn. Go to Nextracker's page on LinkedIn. I'll find it if I can here, but it's a funny little vignette series that he's been doing. Conversations with Uncle Bob, explaining things like, "Oh, we don't have enough real estate." Well, yes, we have enough real estate. We only need 100 square miles, right, to completely green the grid with solar. So I can't remember all the questions he answers, but he answers the common questions that consumers have. And, what about nuclear? And the answer is, well, nuclear is just 4 times as expensive as solar. You can do it. We know how to do it. It's not a question of the technology. It's a question of the cost and the time. And time is super precious, John. We're at 420 ppms, bro. We got to get back to 300. How are we going to get back to 300? That's the thing, John. I'm excited about being a clean energy professional, and I love helping clean energy companies grow and become part of the clean economy and green the grid. That's all very important work. But net zeroing the economy is 40 gigatons of pollution. Getting back to 300 ppm is 1 trillion tons.
So in that article, there's a person who suggested we should be doing 63 terawatts of solar globally, which would be like 90% of energy.
Okay.
When I talked about this article online, there's another person who said 400 terawatts of solar because synth fuels from CO2. Myself, I want to see nuclear powered desalination and DAC, maybe, if we're going to keep building stuff and keep experimenting. And then we'll have it with solar, and then we'll have it with wind. It all plugs into the grid and it just runs. And I don't want DAC to be injecting CO2 into the ground. I want us to be using it as building materials. So I think there's an uninvented technology of recombining CO2. See, this is where I don't know anything about physics and chemistry, but
well, biology is the answer, my friend. It's not planting trees, but it's putting iron in the ocean, ocean iron fertilization.
I've heard this one.
Peter Fikowski has demonstrated.
You like this one a lot.
In his book, Climate Restoration. Check out peterfikowski.com. Peter is an astrophysicist. He ran the numbers, and the ocean is the answer. It covers 70% of the Earth, right? So it's a massive amount of territory. And we have a great natural experiment called Mount Pinatubo in the 90s that exploded, big volcano, and it pumped a bunch of dust and iron and other things into the atmosphere, sulfuric acid, but it flatlined the global ppms of CO2 in the atmosphere because of the iron that went into the ocean. So we digress, though, John. Thank you for your story in PV Magazine. We always want to call out the source. Great story in PV Magazine. And you have another story here. Oh, I found this story. Most read articles of 2023. I want to quickly go through this by Ryan Kennedy. And Ryan is prolific. So we're grateful for Ryan's work. And if I could only become more astute with the screen share. Top 10 most read articles in the US. And this resonates with Barry's list, which we'll harken back to here throughout the show today. But some of the most popular stories: how long do residential solar panels last? Quick answer is a long time, 20 to 30 years. California proposes blatant seizure of property and solar ruling. There's a lot going on in California. And I'm wondering, is the CPUC just corrupt or asleep at the wheel? I mean, they're a very sophisticated organization. I'm just not sure why they're doing things like dinging solar for multifamily or multi-meter. We call this meter aggregation. And this is a thing in many markets where it is allowed for the landlord to become the power company. This makes great sense in multifamily housing or in warehouses, right? 90% of commercial real estate is third-party owned. And if the landlord could become the power company, then they are incentivized to upgrade the facility and put solar on that facility, right? I don't know if you have any comments about meter aggregation. Is that allowed in Massachusetts?
Sort of. Yeah, there's rules. You got to play with it, but you can do we have virtual power plants, different things like that. We can't do it as smoothly as, say, fill out a piece of paper and you can take over all the bills cleanly and quickly. Yeah. But there are ways to manage it via what we call Schedule Z, and it's essentially virtual net metering, things like that, to dance with it.
We're gonna have to get Catalyze back on the show, see how things are going with James Geschweiler. And there's a company that I haven't had on the show, but I want to, called Energy 311. And there's a family of companies that are doing this, but Energy 311 specializes in this meter aggregation, and so they do the heavy lifting. It's just computers, right? You instead of having 10 sub-meters, you have one landlord has all the meters now and then sells the power to the tenants, and then is incentivized to solarize their facility. So anyway, let's keep going down this list. California rooftop installations drop 80% following NEM 3.0. If you're not paying attention to the residential solar market nationally, this story may have escaped you, but you'd really have to be asleep at the wheel. But NEM 3.0 really put a nail in the coffin of residential solar. And, they saw this coming when NEM 3 was passed in 2022, and then it was implemented in 2023, and it reduces the value of solar electrons by 75%. And the scary thing is, John, is that Barry Cinnamon, among others, very smart guy who knows the industry, is, predicting that this is the future of other markets in the U.S. And as I like to say on the show, what happens in California is going to happen elsewhere. California is the bellwether when it comes to clean energy. California and Hawaii. So this does incentivize people to use batteries. Battery attachment rates have gone up, I think, to 70%. I don't know if this says that stat here, but
I got that stat actually. I saw it yesterday. So keep going. I'll
And so, you do have, if you do solar and storage, then there is a value stack there that gives you a reasonable payback. But the cash outlay, of course, is much greater. It's a bigger CapEx project. So, luckily we have companies like Sunrun that are going to do this, as a lease, or PPA, and make it affordable. But it is, solar and storage is a big buy. It's at least a $60,000 project probably, and that's out of reach of most consumers. But anyway, NEM 3.0, that is what is incentivizing installers to innovate and to transition their businesses into other segments of the economy. Here we have great incentives for heat pumps, for example. And so if you can install solar panels, and then you can do service upgrades. Okay, install a bigger service to the facility, install heat pump furnace or heat pump water heater, and EV charging infrastructure. Those are going to be good opportunities for installers. It's electrical infrastructure, and there's good incentives. So that's, I think, the trend that is going to become a national trend, frankly. Indiana killed net metering. Indiana was not a big DG state to begin with, but now it's an even smaller DG state, unfortunately, and that is my birth state, so it is near and dear to my heart. I am a Hoosier, but anyway, don't plan on being a solar installer in Indiana. If you're an Indiana company, you're working in Illinois or Michigan or maybe Wisconsin. What was that number for attachment rates with storage in California now?
So I put the link to the tweet in there, and its battery attach rate is flying upward to 25% as of November. It actually took a little while before it really started to move. So I wonder what changes have occurred, but it is very, very up. I mean, just directly up. And, it's also actually, if you look at the chart above it, the total amount isn't up a huge amount. In fact, it was last month where the total amount of batteries was up a huge amount. It's just that total approvals is down so much that the percent that are actually going through is really high. So it's really a story of sadness. Now you got to look at this graph. There's really kind of a line.
I don't know where the link is. Oh, I see it now. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to share this tab now, and we're looking at this bar graph.
So yeah,
the red is NEM 3.0 approvals.
It's really pretty.
Okay, battery attachment rate. Okay,
like zoom way through the roof. You're like, oh, that's so awesome. Yeah. But if you look at the top, the red dots, that's the battery attachment. No, that's NEM 3. But the number of projects that are down, that are submitted, is so far down that rate can double from last month, but it fell 33%. So it's really like, I don't know. I guess the percentage rate is way up, but the total number of projects is down. So it's kind of sad.
Yeah, you saw an artificial bump in projects. They slammed projects through in the spring to beat out the NEM 3.0, right, to get grandfathered into NEM 2.0, which is why you see the spike in the spring of 2023. But then you see it fall, and now we're 63% lower than we were, or something like that. It's a big dip. But anyway, let's keep moving here. California's electricity duck curve is deepening. As you clean the grid, the duck curve. Sorry?
Switch back to the article. We're looking at the There we go. Wonderful.
California's duck curve is deepening, and that's because, as you increase the amount of wind and solar, it creates a duck curve. The only way to attack that is with batteries, really.
But they are rolling out batteries. They're up to like 6-7 gigawatts of capacity. And if it's almost 4 per hour, we're talking 24 to 28 gigawatt hours. So they're deploying massive amount of batteries. In fact, the next article is about batteries.
Great. How long do residential batteries last? 5 to 10 years.
Well, that wasn't what I was talking about.
5 to 15 years. I mean, the technology, there is a variety of technology. I say listen to Barry Cinnamon. He does a breakdown on his podcast of what he considers to be the tried and true providers. Franklin seems to be one of the most popular solutions of late, but there's a handful of them. Bluetti is in the resi storage space now. I'm excited about that. I'm a Bluetti customer. I have a mobile portable battery by Bluetti. But story about Virginia governor killing the Ford CATL battery plant, calling it a front for the Chinese Communist Party. Well, yeah, CATL is the largest battery company in the world. If I was a governor, I'd want a $3.5 billion project in my state, but apparently Glenn Youngkin did not want that project. So who knows? I don't know if you have any comment about battery factories, John.
I it's really political when you I mean, I get it. Politics is politics. There's 50 states, 50 governors. A battery project was also put on hold in Michigan, I believe, that was associated with similar political sentiments. And the governor is very different there, but there were super local pushback. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing to watch. World's complex.
Yeah.
It's tough.
A lot of factories on the drawing board. Just a question of how many will actually get built. And then they had a roundtable on rooftop solar policy. So check that out. I haven't listened to that roundtable, but it is, I'm sure, worth a listen if you're working in California, especially. But like I said, and Barry Cinnamon says, this is the future for other markets. So you want to pay attention to California and how they're basically having a major tug of war with the utilities. We all have tug of wars. This is just a colossal tug of war. And then higher yields in vertical PV. I'm sure you will be very excited to see this. And maybe you wrote about this. I don't know, John. But the Netherlands Organization for Applied Scientific Research discovered that vertical solar gets better production than you might expect. Have you ever done a helioscope with a solar at 90 degrees?
I have.
And what kind of what is that called? The kWh per kWp do you get with a vertical solar panel in Massachusetts? Is it like 500 kWh per kWp or?
Yeah, it's above it's above 1100.
Okay, because in Illinois, rooftop solar at 10 degree, like flat roof commercial solar, which we would put at 10 or 5 degrees, right? You get 1200 kWh per kWp in Illinois, in the Chicagoland area. And as you move that tilt up, of course, you're going to peak at 30, okay, in Illinois. That's the peak basically. But then as you go to 90, you would expect that to drop. But apparently it's worthwhile. The shocking thing for me was I ran a helioscope in England and the insolation, the kWh per kWp was horrible. It was like 600 because England is very cloudy and it's very far north.
But I would think the further north you go, the nicer it should be. But I don't know that answer.
For vertical, right?
Yeah, for vertical.
Yeah, for vertical. Yeah. I haven't done a vertical helioscope myself. What is the I've been talking to a mechanical installer called Sunstall. Shout out to Helga Biernath, who's I think German, but he works in California and he works across the United States doing basically DG ground mount solar. 1 to 20 megawatt racking. He does piles, racking, and module installation. But he also has a partnership with a vertical racking company called Sunzao, which I'd never heard of. But there's another racking company that I know that you've been in touch with that is targeting vertical. What is the name of that company? Do you know off the top of your head?
Oh, geez, Sun.
Yeah, it's Sun something.
Yeah, of course. Everything's Sun something. Vertical racking.
Okay.
Europe.
Well, we'll find it. So that was a nice roundup of the most popular stories, and there's some overlap there with Barry's list. For example, residential solar revenues in California will plunge by 50%, according to Barry, and that's a big number. Yeah. He also expects a national solar installer to go bankrupt. So there will be turmoil, right? A fast-growing economy is one that has currents and eddies and blood on the floor. But that is just how capitalism works. Interestingly, Barry predicts that Tesla will claw its way into the U.S. residential inverter business. I didn't know that Tesla was working on residential solar inverters, but I thought they were in the CNI inverter space, I think, but
Well, they do definitely have a residential, and it's definitely out there, and it's taking over market share.
okay.
For people.
Yeah.
So yeah, which was surprising to me. I just didn't expect it to pop up,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It's just new. I knew, a long time ago they talked about being amazing inverter designers with their car, and what I was always hoping was a unified architecture between car charging, solar, and battery, and a pure DC line from the sunlight to the car battery. I've been told that's not really viable because inverters within the car, but maybe you could put a special plug. Um, but and so it never really happened the way I envisioned it. But what has occurred now within the Tesla home solar storage vehicular um, connection is that there has been a unifying of the platform. The
Mhm.
solar, the inverter has an AC output max, is an 11.5 kW AC inverter, and the Powerwall 3 can put out 11.5 kW AC. The Cybertruck can charge or do vehicle to house at 11.5 kW AC.
Yeah.
Um, and so there's now an aligning of the platform, and that kind
Yeah.
of excites me because I would love to see a very well aligned solar plus storage plus vehicle
Mhm.
platform. And if it's 11.5 kWac, that seems like a good number, especially
Yeah.
for a residential. Heck yeah,
Yeah, and the battery in a Cybertruck is like 120 kWh.
yeah.
It's a lot of juice. You could run your house for a week on that.
I wonder if
And
you could take that little backup extra battery and like put it on the floor in your garage and have it be the battery backup. Because there's an extra add-on
yeah,
battery for like 16 grand, somebody estimated it to be based on some hacked code.
yeah.
And it's like 40 kWh. It's good price. It's like
Must
400
be
bucks.
heavy. How do you lift that thing?
Oh yeah, good point. I guess you need a forklift.
I wonder if
Yeah.
two people could lift it. But because I thought the battery in my Model Y was 1,500 pounds. That was a 60 kWh battery, and
So
that was
so
my recollection that it weighed 1,500 pounds.
you just gotta do more squats, Tim.
I guess, or
Squats.
curls.
Yeah.
I do a lot of squats because I play a lot of pickleball.
Oh, there you go.
That was the highlight of my year. I did a lot of sailing and played a lot of pickleball in 2023.
Those are good.
And
Those are good things
I
to
think
do.
I sailed in 7 regattas.
Wow, that's cool. Is that
Yeah.
dangerous?
No, not really.
All
When you
right.
crash, you fall in the water.
Well, sometimes that's good.
And you wear a life, so you wear a flotation device so you don't drown. Um, I mean, accidents could happen, of course, but no, generally it's not that dangerous.
Good.
It's a lot safer than driving a car, I think.
Even better. All right. Good. Forgot it is.
Regatta. All right. You got a story about large scale battery storage, right?
Yes. And I think we're at the beginning of seeing there's some cool graphs in there. I think we're at the beginning of seeing energy storage scale in goofy ways like solar has been scaling.
Sure.
And the factories are coming online, and it just makes sense that it might happen now. And I think I think even this person is already underestimating the year after. But it's energy storage. So first off, the number they just have a number that they give. It's like, oh, whiz bang. The what's this capacity? So there are 53 gigawatts and
Mhm.
128 gigawatt hours of capacity,
Mhm.
and that's like 1 second of capacity, but really you only need like of global number. I mean, we could figure that out real fast actually if we wanted to. What's like 29 petawatt hours or something, 29,000 gigawatt hours, terawatt hours. And so it's growing, but look at the last 2 years. Look at 21 to 22, 100 plus. Look at 22 to 23, 100 plus. 24, I don't know why it's not going to be 100 plus again. And from the estimations I'm seeing from manufacturing capacity, like I see this one, and it could be that cars are going to eat it up, but I'm seeing that battery factory announcements were something like 10 terawatt hours approaching 2032, something like that. And this is hundreds, this is 100 gigawatt hours. So 0.1 terawatt hours, 10 terawatt hours. If we have 10 coming, that's two factors. That's two big jumps. It's gadonk, gadonk. It's like 1 to 10 is like what, 4 doublings? 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to something. And then I guess you got 2 more. That's like 6 doublings to go from 1 to that number. And that's why I initially had stuck this one right next to the 3 terawatts of solar panels, 4 terawatts of solar panels. I stuck them next to each other because I was like, cool. These two numbers next to each other, these two articles make sense. But it's like we could be in the beginnings of an accelerated movement forward, accelerated energy transition.
Yeah, I wrote a story in 2023 about grid scale energy storage, and the statistic that stands out for me is that that Berkeley National Laboratory estimates we need 6 terawatt hours of battery storage to clean the grid, so to speak. And what I calculated was that would be 100x of what we have today. So in any case, we are installing a lot of batteries. It's clearly taking off. From 22 to 23 was a big jump, 133% in kWh, right, globally. And then they're estimating a slightly slower rate from 23 to 24.
They always do that. Why does everybody always do that? You know why? They get serious. And they're like, oh, we can't estimate such foolish growth again. That wouldn't make sense. But it always happens, and they're always wrong.
Could be. And
not everybody, but actually everybody.
So, any other takeaways from this? I mean, these are nice graphs. I don't know. It's hard to put this in context, but the takeaway for me is we're still just scratching the surface with energy storage, but it's very important. It is truly the way to attack the duck curve. And it's good for grid operators. Just look at Texas. There's as much storage in the queue in ERCOT as there is solar. And there's a reason for that. It's good for the grid, and the grid operator is incentivizing that, right?
Well, I'm going to say that everybody should be watching storage. You should be watching it. And if you really wanted to get a job right now, you should jump into storage because it's going to grow stupidly fast.
Yeah.
And it's going to go from 120, whatever, 24, 113 gigawatts this year, or whatever it was, 100 gigawatt hours. And in 4 years, it's going to be at a terawatt because this year to next year, it's going to be at like 200 plus. And then in 26, that's 400. 27, that's 8. Now you're at a terawatt well before the end of the decade, and it's probably going to go faster than that because that's just the way it works. So I think energy storage is going to grow faster from a lower base, of course, but grow faster than solar right now. But the two in tandem, that's the magic. That's the magic right there. That's
now. Do we want to cover this story about New South Wales?
Yeah.
World's largest 8-hour lithium battery approved in New South Wales. Arc Energy's 275 megawatt, 2200 megawatt hour lithium iron phosphate. Okay, so LFP battery to be built in northern New South Wales has been announced. The Australians are early adopters of storage for sure, right?
And if lithium ion is doing 8 hours, everybody that's in the 8 to 12 hour battery length is now under a lot of pressure. And if lithium ion is able to make the move to 8 hours with all that extra hardware, everybody said it could never afford to do it. It's happening now because battery cell prices are all like $70 a kilowatt hour, 70 to 80, and trending downward as scale comes up, Timothy, just like solar. So if it keeps trending, does 12 hours open for lithium ion? Does 16? Could we have a 24-hour lithium ion battery that's cost competitive? Would it make sense? I don't know. 12-hour. But that suddenly tells me that maybe lithium ion might become competitive on a cost level in ways, or lithium phosphate or lithium whatever, but lithium based can become cost competitive in ways that people never expected at prices that are pretty solid. I mean, this is still, Tesla's website's still above $400 installed, but a lot of other people are like 200.
Yeah, lithium is good. It dominates the scene today. My research from the summer and the webinars that I hosted with Reuters really was eye-opening. I think, ESS was featured prominently. They have an iron flow battery technology.
My favorite.
I wrote about Form Energy, the iron air battery. They have a 100-hour battery technology. It's a rust battery.
Yep.
So there's a lot of other, and they're getting, some big pilots going now in several places across the U.S. I think,
it's a thermovoltaic battery. Have you heard of that one yet?
I'm not sure. What's the company?
Yeah, so I didn't even realize what the heck I was reading. So I covered an article a few months back. We even covered it on the show, but it was by NREL, and they are working with a company who's got a battery that's close to being turned on. And the battery is a giant piece of ceramic that's heated up, and then the heat it gives off, I guess infrared, is then collected by thermovoltaic panels. And that is
I haven't
function.
I haven't studied this. Shale Khan covered this on his podcast.
Oh my goodness. It just like was so cool. So the thermal portion has efficiencies approaching 100%. The photovoltaic or the thermovoltaic portion is like 30-40% efficiency. So I'm open to really cool stuff coming. That would be just really sweet. And the US military liked the technology from a survivability standpoint, was the terminology used. Some confusing things, some nuances of it that I don't fully get, but they pretty much assume that it's going to run at a very high probability for 14 days. And that's their 2-week backup ruling thing. And if they say if the thing's running at the beginning of the 2-week window, we're super certain it's going to keep running for 2 weeks. Whereas the emergency diesel generators have a 70%, 80% survivability through a 2-week period, which is highly driven by local access to fuel, because fuel resources can be scarce during times of complexity.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Diesel generators, not as good as solar and storage. That's it. That's what I got.
Okay, I understand that. They are not as good. It's true. They are polluting. They're killing the planet. They're heating the planet. No bueno. But getting rid of them is easier said than done.
Correct.
What else are we going to do? We got 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Well, First Solar just booked $700 million of cash in exchange for approximately 17.5 cents per watt for every module they manufactured via tax credits that are allowed to via tax credit transfer.
Yeah.
So roughly $729 million tax credit based on roughly 4.5 gigs of manufacturing. And this is just some math I did. Says that, since they told us 96 cents on the dollar, that means that, and this is from the manufacturer's tax credit in the IRA, in the Inflation Reduction Act. And so First Solar put out a press release right before the end of the year talking up a whole bunch of money that they made, and or a whole bunch of money that they were given to help fuel their growth. And it's probably really valuable cash if you think about it. The fact that they're trying to expand so much and they need money to build facilities. I know they're leveraged against this money to some degree with the bankers, but now they have the cash and they have the legislation behind them. And next year, as they double over the next couple of years toward 10 to 15, 10 to 20 gigs, you're going to see this number pop through 2029, which is when I believe the IRA manufacturing tax credit might go away.
Okay.
So
why does somebody want to buy these tax credits?
let's say I owe you $1 million. No, I owe the government $1 million, and First Solar has tax credits. You get some sort of discount on it. You know, this company had a $700 million tax bill because this is dollar for dollar, and they got back like 10, 20 million bucks. You know, I guess it's so this is 96 on the dollar. You know, maybe Citibank took a cent or two, and then the other person took 3%, and 3% of 7 is 21 million. You know, chump change to some of us.
Apparently.
So I don't
is there
know.
Something you're not telling me, John?
Yeah, you're hired.
Well, yeah, this is a good story, and we're going to see a lot more stories about tax credits, right? The IRA allows for much more fluidity, I guess, for lack of a better expression, in the tax credit market. If you're a company installing a solar array and you can't use the tax credits, you can sell them, right? And now there are platforms popping up. I'm doing an interview with a company called Basis. Build with Basis is their website, that is creating a marketplace. And historically, the banks have been the marketplace. The banks have ruled this world. And now it's being democratized through technology like Basis. And so it's a good thing, right? It just creates fluidity in the market.
Fintech. Fintech's good. We like fintech.
If you couldn't use the tax credits historically, that was a problem, right? 30%, you get a 30% tax credit. So if you're doing $1 million project, that's $333,000 of tax credits. It's a lot of money.
And now I hear that the smaller projects are getting like somewhere in the upper 80s on the dollar.
Yeah, 85 cents. I think that's a figure I heard.
So, but I haven't actually done any of it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
So, and First Solar, of course, is really unique in that they're the only company that has a full stack right now, today, happening at this very instant across the supply chain. And they came into the IRA with it already happening. Have you seen this chart before, Tim?
I have not. I don't know what I'm looking at here.
So this came from Credit Suisse, and this is Credit Suisse projecting that the project LCOE will fall below a half a cent per kilowatt hour in the United States because of stacked IRA incentives. I projected it would go even below that. And now that we've had the collapse in the price of solar modules.
And on this graph, that's the $10 mark?
Yeah, $10, 1 cent per kilowatt hour. That's 10 megawatt hours divided by 1,000.
Yeah. So in 2025, the blue is solar LCOE, the gray is wind LCOE. Yeah, it's cheap energy, man. It makes sense, right? Because the fuel is free. The fuel is wind or solar photons from the sun. And You don't have to dig stuff out of the ground. Well, you have to dig stuff out of the ground to build the solar panels, but then you're not digging fuel for the rest of the life of the solar panel the way you would with a coal plant. So just there's a logic to it. It's not smoke and mirrors. It's real. Sunlight is free. It's also deadly.
So
don't want too much sunlight.
So First Solar is banking next year. That number is going to be bigger.
Yeah, I am a fan of First Solar. It is truly our one and only like soup to nuts solar company, solar panel company in the United States. Q-Cells is chasing it, luckily, but they're really the only one as far as I know. I don't know. Maybe a couple others are now saying they're going to do this, right? But
some people working on it. We're getting there. There's hundreds. There's like 80 gigs of panel manufacturing in certain pipelines and similar in cells. I haven't seen the wafer number as big, but maybe it's decent sized.
Yeah. A lot of factories. This quote here is wonderful. Over the past year, nearly $100 billion in clean energy manufacturing investments have been announced, with plans for close to 100 new facilities across the U.S. Now, only 50 of those might get built, but still, that's a lot. 50 new gigafactories. I could live with that.
They're bigger than gigafactories. There's
terafactories.
5 gigafactories. 5 gigafactories.
Yeah.
That's that's the small fry stuff. The big
a gigafactory just means gigawatt scale.
Yeah. All right. It's time.
Let's wrap it up. We didn't get to talk through Barry's whole list, but check out the energy show. I love Barry Cinnamon. I hope to see him in San Diego. If you're going to San Diego to InterSolar or RE Plus Community Power, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or at cleanpowerhour.com, where all this content lives 24/7. Give us a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify. Tell a friend about the show. And where can our listeners find you, Mr. Commercial Solar Guy?
CommercialSolarGuy.com. That's the best place. We've got a contact us page. I also like Twitter, but I'm setting up my own place on my own website. I've started working on it, Tim, where I'm putting out small chunks of news instead of writing full articles. And so slowly over time, I'm going to build that out because I'm getting tired of these social media people doing the things they do. And, so I'm changing it. But CommercialSolarGuy.com. I'm also on LinkedIn as John Fitzgerald Weaver and Twitter as Solar in Mass. Massive volumes, massive capacities.
Nice. All right, John. Well, thanks. And I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. Take care.